Hey, Countdown to the Geeks. Welcome back to another episode of Comics. We're talking about an upcoming comic that's going to be coming out, Usagi Yojimbo, 1984. There's more to it. We're going to find out. Um, I got Jared on today, Cullum, and not just that. It was just going to be him, but he brought a special guest along for this interview, which I am stoked for. We're going to get to talk to Zack and Jared about how they pitched for this story and what you guys can expect, and hear a little bit of their journey of them becoming a writer and becoming an artist. Jared has been reading Stephen King because he wants to start writing more comics as well, and Stephen King is the man. If you love novels, Stephen King is up there. He is my white buffalo of people to meet, which I don't know if I ever will, but that he's up there. But before we get started, let's get a quick shout out to Dragon's Lair Alamo Ranch. If you want to do gaming, D&D, Warhammer 40K, Pokemon, One Piece, this is where you want to go. If you want to pick up graphic novels, a pre-order or get a subscription, this is where you want to go as well. You can go chill here. This comic book store is not like other comic book stores here in San Antonio. They're actually open till 10 every day, Wednesdays till midnight, Fridays till midnight, and Saturdays till midnight. So if you want to come in and game, play some D&D, you can just come in and we'll be open till then. But let's get them in the room. Let's not wait any longer. Let's get Jared in here. What's going on, Chief?
Hey.
And let's get Mr. Zack.
Howdy.
How's it going? Guys, thanks for coming on Countdown, and we're going to talk about this book that you guys put together. And, you know, Jared has been nominated for Eisner. And Zack, where did you, to start off with Zack first, when did you start writing comics that you knew that's what you wanted to do?
I mean, that's a good question. I've actually been in comics for over 15 years.
Wow.
So more on the editorial side. I actually started my journey as a Marvel Comics intern in the
Wow.
early 2010s. Actually, before 2010s, I interned and you know, from there, worked there a bit and kind of freelanced my way around. And always loved it. Always loved being part of a creative team and bringing stories to life, whether that be in like physical print media or hopefully animation or live action. And around a decade ago, so after been working in the industry, so primarily at, you know, again, Marvel, I was there. I worked at a smaller studio called New Paradigm Studios. They had an Eisner nominated book called Watson and Holmes. I was the assistant editor there, and I've done, you know, projects here and there. But I had that kind of aha moment where I was like, you know what, why am I not writing myself, right? Like, I'm an editor. I love being creative. I'm collaborative to my core. Let me take what I've learned as an editor and, you know, try and be a writer. And so it's not a race. I think that's the big thing I want to tell creatives or aspiring creators out there. Like, you don't have to rush to make it. Like, everything, like my first OGN came out in October with Simon and Schuster. It's a middle grade graphic novel called T.S. Hullabaloo. That idea actually was optioned at Disney for an animated TV show. You know, we didn't go into development, but what happened from there is that once we got the rights back, we were like, let's make a graphic novel. And I say you know, I have a writing partner on that project. So I work in many kind of fields of creativity. You know, it's comics and animation for feature and television. And like,
Wow.
to kind of go back to like, it's not a race. Like, I've had over 100 pitch meetings at all the major studios,
Wow.
at all the major production companies. I've been in the room, you know, I had pitched, you know, Tina Fey's production company, and she was there. Like, I had no idea she would be in the pitch meeting, and that's a story for another day. But, you know, none of those have come to fruition yet, but they will. You just got to keep trying. And it's not a race. It's all about, sometimes it's really two things: the timing of things and who you know. And a little bit of those two elements actually have played into like how we got Usagi KAITO to come in, you know, into the world a little bit. So yeah, I've been telling people, like, it's been like 10 years of like building up and pitching and selling stories. And now I'm like creatively thriving, right? You know, I have my graphic novel that came out last October. We have Usagi. There's a few other projects I can't talk about. And Jared, I like to kind of pass it to you a little bit. Like your similar story, right? You've built up your career, you know, and sometimes it's a slow burn, sometimes it's a skyrocket, right? It ebbs and flows, and so no creative journey is one and the same. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's a sprint, sometimes it's quite the run, and sometimes it's a slow gait. You just don't know. Yeah, just pass it over to you, bud, I guess, if you don't
Yeah.
mind, like,
Jared, yeah. I mean, tell us your story. I mean, you literally at I think it was 15 or 16, they told you that, don't waste your time in doing art, and you got turned down on, pitches for your stories and your graphic novel. Um, but you didn't let that stop you. You literally went in 110% and started going down to history, like back in time to study the original people who did oil paintings, water painting. I mean, dude, tell us about this. Like, what lit the fire for you?
Well, well, thank you very much, Ray. I really appreciate you saying those kind of things. I'm not nearly as articulate as Zach, but I think I don't know. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking specifically about the career. I don't know. I think it's sort of, I don't want to lionize myself by saying I've like accomplished something by, I have just sort of stuck to this same thing forever, despite the accumulation of failure and rejection that I've been heaped on my entire, I guess what you would call a career or job in doing this. But I do love doing it, and I did have that happen. I mean, but I think that's I don't want to sound like self-aggrandizing by saying that I was told to quit and then I kept going. I think a lot of people go through that experience, especially people who are very passionate, maybe even especially people who are passionate about cartoons or
Yes.
sequential storytelling, because I think a lot of times people don't get it. And I think watercolor, I find a kinship between drawing cartoons and painting with watercolor, because watercolor is also sort of seen as a more of a sketching, less of a high art in the fine art world that I've also sort of dabbled around the edges of, but never really taken seriously. I've sort of kept myself like in my own sandbox where I can have some modicum of joy, because I feel like it's too much to experience the weight of rejection and things, both from industry and then other people who I would consider who are artists with a capital A, or like the real artists who are out there. So I tend to sort of shelter myself from that. But I did. My high school teacher told me I should quit, and I wasn't allowed to take art classes anymore in high school. I was in DFW, by the way. I was in Fort Worth and in Keller, and so
Wow.
San Antonio was like, that's the vacation city we would go to. It was like we'd go do the Riverwalk and stuff. So I'm very familiar with San Antonio, by the way. Also, thank you so much for having us, by the way. I wanted to say that up front.
oh
I
yeah,
love this show. I
stupid me, like, yeah, thank you for having us, Ray. Oh my
enjoy
God, yeah.
yeah, I've enjoyed watching it while working and stuff, and I appreciate you letting us on. But yeah, my high school teacher and then also just my local comic shop too, who had the best intentions. It's all, I think, people who have the best intentions. I don't think they necessarily meant to be hurtful. I think they genuinely thought they were helping me. I think, and maybe if you saw the type of pictures I was drawing when I was in high school, you might have said the same thing, to be totally honest. For the most part, I spent most of my life drawing stick figure comics, because I've never really had like a natural talent or gift, I guess, for art or art making. Everything I've gotten, I've sort of cobbled together through the years of just trying to push myself. But my local comic shop was I think probably the biggest heartbreak, because I made my first little comic and I took it in because some of the local people would sell them on the shelves and stuff. And
Yeah.
the shop owner took my comic and he held it up next to the Green Lantern and was like, "Do you see the disparity between what you're producing and what is on my shelf?"
Woof.
And
Wow.
he told me, "You're never going to make it on the shelf." And I should consider writing. If I want to do comic books, I should try writing and try to hire someone who can actually draw pictures, which at the time was true. I mean, I was not drawing very well at the time. But I think you never know the kind of obsession that someone can have, and the kind of you know I don't know that a lot of people I don't have a lot of like natural talent for making art. I don't really consider myself an artist with a capital A. I think pretty much anybody could do what I do. If you the only talent I have is that I just don't stop doing it. I just keep every day doing this thing, sort of pushing this Sisyphean stone, up
Well, I
the
mean,
hill.
art goes back all the way to history. I mean, before, paintings would tell stories, and that's where art came from. I mean, even down to the cave drawings, that was a story that was drawn on a wall. And every artist, that's their story they're telling. And with your book, and that's what I was going to bring up as well, with KODI, that's what you did. I mean, you literally told a story with just painting and talking about this character. And I feel it's your story that you're telling,
That's true.
and just the background that you filled, the different colors of the trees, you took the time to tell that story. So even without, the words, you can tell by the photos. And to me, even with me as a kid who was dyslexic, it was hard for me to read in class. I hated when they called on me to read because I knew I couldn't read correctly. And comics is what helped me read, or at least learn to read. I still had the fear, but that's what helped me. And the pictures, of course, that was another thing. But with you, that's what you wanted to do. You wanted to tell stories through your art, and I feel that's what you do. I mean, I'm gonna bring this up. This piece right here. This is just gorgeous. I mean,
Oh,
the
thanks, man.
the way you see the background. I mean, it just the trend. I don't know if this is just a doodle or if this is something we're gonna see in the comic, but like this is just gorgeous. Like this is
That's a
something
page in my sketchbook.
they see, like that's something I would like to have on my wall
Oh,
because,
you're very kind.
well, no, because that's the thing. It's you can see the work you put behind the time, and as an artist, and a lot of people don't know this. Sometimes some people, once you've built and sharpened your tools, it may have taken you when you first started an hour and a half to do something like that. As you like people talk about, every artist brings different things to the table. You know, you may knock that out now in 35 minutes. Every artist, as they learn, okay, they learn their little shortcuts here. They know what they need to bring. And I feel you going down that road, I feel it's helped you these last years and developed you to the point where you're at currently. That's just my opinion, because seeing some of the transitions of your stuff, going down the rabbit hole of learning the history of you, you can see the transition as it's grown. But
Well,
that's
thank
just
you.
that's
I
just
mean,
me.
a lot of it, I think, is learning from, like you said, the stories of old from art history. I mean, I've kind of talked about this in other things, but I've always been, since I got into painting, I got very obsessed with the history of watercolor, and Winslow Homer and like Thomas Eakins and watercolorists throughout the years, and the things that they would use to tell stories. So especially painting from the um, mid to late 1800s became like a real obsession for mine because of the kinds of stories that they were telling with the art they were producing, and sort of taking lessons from how they compose a scene or tell a story, and then basically stealing those elements for my own sort of, I mean, honestly it feels like a party trick, the using the watercolor. So I don't know, a very well practiced party trick, but taking things like aerial perspective and lighting, especially lighting is sort of my main, I think that's what drew me directly into painting. I don't want to like ramble on them, so I don't want to put your viewers to sleep. But when I had hit a point where I was drawing and it wasn't really working for me, I had done this like local workshop, and they had a section of like a library of comics, and they had a section of French comics, which we had kind of talked a minute about before the show started.
Yeah.
And in it, I discovered like Mobius I had never seen before, and Louis Trondheim and Jones Farr, and they became like a pantheon of heroes to me. and they used water. Some of them used water, like Louis Trondheim uses watercolor in his daily Little Nothing journal comics, and I would see them sketching with watercolor a lot, and so I went down the rabbit hole and just became completely obsessed. And then the real turning point for me was I had gone to a conference in Pasadena, or Burbank rather. There was CTN before Lightbox. Anyways, I went to CTN, and Stuart and G is there, and I was there, and I ended up going through their books, which was just like life changing. And they had a book called Portugal when it first came out, which is Cyril Pedrosa. So if I had that like pantheon of French artists, Cyril Pedrosa would probably be like the head of the table. And he did Three Shadows that First Second put out, and he's done a lot of books since. They're all there above my head, and that's actually the book I'm talking about. Portugal, right there, is a poster.
Oh,
for
dang.
it. Those are two Cyril Pedrosa books behind all the Porco Rosa stuff. But anyways, he did Portugal, and at the time, this was when it first came here from NBM, I guess, or whoever brought it over. They hadn't translated it; it was still in French, and I read it cover to cover without a beat. I was able to read it without knowing what the dialogue said. It was all completely in French, and that completely changed my life, because I had no idea that was even possible, that you could tell the story visually so well with the lighting and the color choices. And his is like half watercolor. It's watercolor and then like a digital texture sort of coloring alterations in that particular book. He sort of changes each book. So but it was done so well that I didn't need to know what the French word bubbles said. I was able to just read, and it's there are some high points of drama. There's, and there's like a breakup, and there's some other stuff that happens, and I could just follow it beat for beat by just the facial expression, the posture, the color choices. You can tell page by page the motivation of the actors or characters by the lighting choices that he used, the way they're spotlit in a certain way, or if it's using a lot of warm colors or cool colors, or if it's raining, or if it's whatever. The lighting is such a strong storytelling tool in that you don't need to speak the language. So that was a real turning point for me. And then I was doing a web comic at the time, because everybody was doing a web comic at that time. This is like 2011, I guess. And I was like, I had done like maybe 400 comic strips for this. I was putting them out 3 days a week at the time. And I was trying to do that because I was really into trying to do inking, because I figured I'm never going to get to the level of drawing I want to get to, because I'm just not going to live long enough. Despite I was doing a lot of practice drills and stuff. And so I had figured I could maybe practice inking enough. And then I fell so deeply. I tried to kind of dip my toe into watercolor, and I just absolutely became absorbed in the sort of ocean of it. And then that led to, I dropped the webcomic, and I spent maybe 6 to 9 months just sort of obsessively doing drawing drills and doing academic studies. So as best I could, studying academic art and drawing, and then I never stopped. I just kept doing that. So I've just been doing, like, I switched to doing drawing drills, like that thing you pulled up with Usagi was I usually do figure drills, where I'll do 20 or 40 figures a day, or however many for a certain period of time.
So that's basically like a doodle.
I mean, yeah, if you, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, like, it's just in a sketch, because I told Zach when Zach and I first said we wanted to do this thing, we had put it together, and then we didn't get a immediate rejection. I told him, because a lot of things that happens, you can tell in my book too, and everything I do, this happens, is the character gets better as the book goes along. So by the end of the book, it looks different, because your style kind of, like, you're drawing it so much, you just get a little bit cleaner by the end of the book. So I told Zach, when we had pitched it, and they, like I said, didn't immediately reject it, I told him I wanted to draw the cast, or at least Usagi, at least like 10,000 times before we drew the first page, and then I've just kept doing that since. I still do that. I just fill the pages anytime I'm like on the phone, or not doing a specific sort of painting study. I just doodle, and this, and for the time being, it's been Usagi's, just hundreds and hundreds of them, just because I want to know the character. I do a lot with sculpting with clay too, just to understand
Dang.
the light and the form on the character. So I you know, that way I can rotate the character, have him do whatever kind of action I want him to, and he won't look like a completely, you know,
Yeah.
abstracted cubist sort of like refraction of the character as he moves, you know.
So
It's
so when
hard.
did so when did you and Zach first meet? Like when did you realize you guys hit it off, and that started everything?
Well, I can let Zach answer, but it basically came through a friend. I guess you had found my stuff through
Yeah.
the
So
internet.
yeah. So I had followed Jared on Instagram,
Oh
and
wow.
I was planning on going to, this was at the time, this is SBX nearly 15 years ago, right, Jared? It has to be
Wow.
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah, for sure.
give or take. And I couldn't
Maybe
make it
13,
anymore.
14
Yeah,
years.
nearly 15 years. And I couldn't make it to SPX, but my friend was going, and I was like, please, for the love of God, go to this artist and see if you can get a commission for me. I just love his stuff. And I had, I had gotten your web comic, the little like ashcan size, I think at Heroes Con, but I don't think you and I had like really met,
Oh yeah,
you
because we were
know.
both doing heroes and we didn't
Yeah,
know each
yeah.
other.
And
Wow.
and so yeah, no, I got this, my friend got a sketch, and I just messaged you, right? Like, and I was just like, thank you. You like
Hmm.
blew this out of the water. And honestly, we just kept in touch, we built a rapport, and as I was working on my career, my writing partner and I, on a different project, hired Jared to do visual development art for a feature animation pitch that
Wow.
also turned into a graphic novel. This is called Wonder City. Essentially, the log line is Goonies in 1980s New York City. Is basically, you can find this book anywhere. You can go on Amazon. It's written by my writing partner Victor Fuste. Jared did all the interior art, co-developed
Love
by
that.
me, and
Wow.
that started as a feature pitch. Like, if like we had taken that to Hollywood and we had pitched it. And what's really funny about when you have pitch meetings is that, like, they always say this would make a great graphic novel, and we were just, that was told to us so many times, we're like, all right, we'll just make it as a graphic novel, and then like maybe repitch it down the road. But Jared had initially done the viz dev art because his lighting is so good. He really can do atmospheric pieces so well that really establish scenes in just a clear way. There's so much story you can get out of just one image. And you need that for a feature pitch, especially for an animatic feature pitch. And so we had commissioned Jared for 4 viz dev pieces for critical scenes. And then when we were going into the graphic novel stage, it was like, you know what? Let's just have Jared do the art, and that was a 2-year project. Um, this is in between like us just becoming friends, right? Talking every
Mhm.
day. We're very like-minded in the sense of like what we like. And Jared, correct me if I'm wrong. We both love Ghibli, right? We love
Sure.
quiet
That
moments.
definitely.
Like, yeah, but like
Yeah.
the quiet moments, I think that we gravitate towards those animated scenes that it's not action packed. It's more a slice of life. And there's something entrancing about it, and something that you just connect at a deeper level. And I think this is why Ghibli movies are so unique, is that they take their time,
Yeah.
especially with a scene, you know? And so that mutual passion of quiet moments, I think, just like bleeds into the work Jared and I do together, right? And, really to segue in, I mean, how kind of Kaito came to be was, Jared had been doing these variant covers, right, for Stan. And like, out the gate, people love these covers. Like, who couldn't, right? They're just so great. Actually, Jared, do you mind if I, like, when you got your first cover, you called me, right? Because
Well,
I
that's what
had
I
been
was
to,
going to talk about a little bit
yeah,
about.
yeah. Do you want, yeah, let me pass it to you, actually. Like,
Oh,
I
sure.
think
I
this,
mean,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want to
yeah,
interrupt you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
No, no.
I feel like Zach, part of the thing that bonded Zach and I was that he is one of the few people that gets the level of passion that I have about talking about story. I feel like is probably boring to most people, and the obsession with painting and lighting and talking about it, and I feel like it's worked really well with Zach even before we officially were working together. Zach often would be a kind of sounding board that he could pitch ideas to me, which kind of led to me saying, hey, I'm trying to work out the idea here of this story, but I have my biggest problem is a lot of times I get very clear pictures in my head, but I have a very difficult time writing words. So I don't usually write a lot of words. I tend to draw pictures, and I tend to write, and I've always been this way, which always got me in trouble when I was a kid, but I write in storyboards, so to speak, just because I can see pictures in my head quite clearly, and I have a hard time writing letters. And so I will usually draw storyboards because I just see it better. So
Yeah.
Zack gets that and would understand that from me. And so we had a good relationship where I could pitch to him storyboards of a sequence and he could help me out. Or when I have a story in mind, a lot of times for me, it comes in very vivid pictures that I can get as this sort of like sporadic array of these different pictures, but I don't know how they click together. It's just sort of random. And so I'll spend a lot of time sort of working on environments and working on world building and working on character design and stuff, but I don't know how to piece the thing together or thread the thing together. And
Wow.
Zack was very helpful. And so I would pitch anytime I had like a graphic novel idea, I would say, hey, I got this idea and I see this thing very clearly and this thing very clearly and this, but I don't know how they have any relation to each other. And Zack's very good at taking those completely random scraps of paper, so to speak, and sort of stitching them together or helping me stitch
Wow.
them together. And that sort of became a bond because of initially with doing Usagi covers. I was telling him about how I wanted to do slice of life. I wanted to do something that wasn't just like cool, beating up somebody or, some kind of cool scene necessarily. And I wanted it to be something that stood out. And he helped me a lot with, I had some different things I was picturing, but Zack knew a lot more about like the culture. And so he helped me a lot with coming up with the idea of the first cover I did for Stan, which was related to like cleansing your hands before entering a shrine. So the kind of concept came from him, but that was like the initial time of me storyboarding a bunch of characters and ideas, telling him the kinds of things I wanted. He helped me thread together a kind of narrative that became the cover, with his kind
Wow.
of cultural understanding. And so a lot of Usagi, the generating the idea that became Usagi 1984, initially started with me, in so much as like that's like me saying I invented a refrigerator and I just drew a cube. I basically like I was out at a plein air painting event and I had saw this old car. I saw this old car and I really thought it was cool and I liked it, and so I drew it. I painted it. It was like a painting event, so I did a little sketch of it, and then I was just curious, so I googled it, and it was a 1984 Volkswagen Rabbit. And at the time they were posting all this stuff about the 40th anniversary of Usagi.
Yeah.
So I did a bunch of little doodles of drawings I kind of saw in my head of my memory of the 80s, which is mostly, I was a kid in the 80s, so most of my
Mhm.
memory culturally the 80s is like my father, who I remember very well, just wearing really high short shorts and high white socks up to his knees and like a polo if he wasn't in a suit, and kind of bigger hair and that kind of thing, tight clothes, big white clunky shoes. And so I drew a bunch of these random Usagi sort of universe characters in those kind of outfits, and I sent them to Zack as like, hey, wouldn't this be funny? And I sent him the picture of the car, and he was like, we should do something with this idea. And I was like, absolutely not. And I threw everything in the garbage, because I usually do that. And I thought it was
Are you serious? Oh my
yeah,
god.
I was too embarrassed to even, because I thought, I'm gonna tell Stan and his family this idea and they're never gonna talk to me again. They're gonna like I was too embarrassed. So Zack literally took the idea out of the trash can, maybe 4 times, until he finally convinced me to like actually draw some finished concept art for it.
Well, I think even you had done these drawings, right, Jared? And I was like, this is it. This is what we could kind of like. They don't, when Jared had started doing variant covers, I was like, hey, we should try and pitch them something. And out of respect, I'm never going to push my best friend to do something he's not comfortable with, right?
Yeah.
But and it was really just about what is the right idea. And when he had done this like drawing of the rabbit and this iteration of Usagi, I remember talking to you, Jared, and I was just like, we should do something with it. And you're like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to ruin this great gig I have, this great relationship I'm building. And I think what I told you, I was like, give me a few days, like give me a day just to like write something, put some words on paper, just between us, right? And
I've had
I
too
did some,
many experiences
yeah, yeah,
meeting an artistic hero and then
it-
being like, hey, here's my work, and then being like, okay.
yeah,
And then me
and just
just
being
being like,
deflated, right?
I
But
really like your stuff, and
yeah,
like not
yeah,
mumbling
not hearing,
through
yeah,
silence, and then being like,
yeah.
okay, well, I'm never gonna go back to this city again in my life. So
But on the
I
flip side, right? They don't know you want to create until you tell someone, right? I
Yes.
find
that's
it's
true.
fun. It's funny, right? Like we're all creators, and they never think to ask you, right? And I'm saying this in really a broad sense, right? It's just such an age old problem. Like you have to almost tell a publisher, tell an editor, tell a fellow creator, like, I want to do this too, and like really show them. And so I took a first stab of just like, what would I imagine an 80s Usagi be? This is really funny. This is some cool insider baseball. I had written this thing and I wrote it too much like Last Ronin, right? Because I was seeing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles do this whole cool thing, like kind of really go into a like dark territory. And Jared sees the pitch and he's like, Zach, like, I see what you're doing. It's not us. Like like think Ghibli Lupin the Third. Think like something a little bit like Place to My Watercolor. I felt like an idiot because that was the best piece of advice like I have, like Godoy, like what great instincts from my friend to just really pivot into something really great and grand. And so with that note, it really transformed into, a successful story, right? Like we're going to come out with this first issue. And I would say that's a touchstone, right? It's this Ghibli-esque Lupin the Third sensibility and flavor in a more modern setting, right? And it's Usagi's, ancestor, it's that descendant. And we're really building into the lore. And this was scary, right? Like we were
Yeah,
playing
I
with a
was gonna
character
say.
that we adore, right? I remember the exact day my dad bought me my first Usagi graphic novel. I was 11 years old at Pee Wee
Wow.
Comics in Agora Hills, California. I remember getting it and just falling in love with this character. I have like sketchbook. When I was talking to Stan, I'm like, Stan, you and I have met when I was like 12, but like we never like could like know that it would transform into this, right? I have sketchbooks that are dated like 98, like 2001, when I
That's wild.
first
Were you
met
in
him.
Pasadena at the time, by the way?
My dad was working in Pasadena, but like I don't think they ever like I grew up in Southern California. I live in the East Coast now, but like we never
Oh, because I
intersected. But
knew Stan was there at one
he
point.
was
I
in
just didn't
Pasadena.
know,
Yeah, it's wild, right? Like, but my dad
if
was
at
such a
what
comic
point.
book fan. But yeah, and so we, when Jerry says we weren't immediately rejected, I almost was like, we just didn't get it. We got like actually an email pretty quickly, like in my opinion, like within 4 weeks, they wrote back to us and they're like, guys, this is amazing. Like, can we talk about this? Like, and we were just like over the moon. Like, it was just like, whoa, they really like what we cooked up. And we met with and this is we had sent the pitch around a transitionary period for Stan and Dogu Publishing. If you know how the publishing history has gone,
Yeah.
Stan started this at Fantagraphics, spent most of the tenure at Dark Horse, left Dark Horse, went to IDW, and
Yeah.
we had kind of come into the fold as he was segueing back into Dark Horse, under this new imprint, Dogu Publishing. And so Jared had been doing covers, for 2 years now, right? And if you know your comic book history or follow the news cycle, I think like prior to announcing this, they had announced Jared doing an art book for Usagi because like the watercolors are so great. And they want to at that same time they announced this art book that they were hoping to do with Jared. They were like, we want to open this world to more creators. So like Jared and I knew already, and publicly it was known that Stan wanted to like open the sandbox and let other people play. But nothing had been heard from that announcement 2 years ago. And so
Wow.
we took our shot. We took something and we're like, hey, we're a creative team. We know how to collaborate. Like, here's a story that is so well thought of. What we like to think is well thought of, like thought out, and we're mega fans. Like if you go to the Usagi dojo fan groups and stuff, like we're there. We've been there prior to the announcement, because we are fans, and it's like it's surreal being a fan and a creator getting to be the first writer to be writing the character outside of Stan is like, and it's standalone, right? Is bananas. Like I still get heady about it, and the whole family has been really sweet. Like Stan's wife Julie was like, Stan chose you guys for a reason. Like
I was
like you're
just gonna say
like
he's very picky about who he has work on his stuff. So yes, so that's what I was just gonna mention, that that, yeah, I mean, for you guys to be able, both of you, to work on this, and I'm gonna bring a photo, guys. I mean, this is the cover 1 of 5. Okay, Jared, the
Wow, I'm
background
here,
that
by
you
the way.
oh
oh
my
man,
god, no
it
freaking
it
way,
looks even better like not scanned. Like, can we
I
just
forgot.
like, oh god.
I have them
dude.
all. All I do,
Don't
all the
show
work I
anymore
do
because you
is. I
can't.
know I can't go any further. This is as far as they're all sitting here in the stack.
Yeah, and you
Wow.
can see blurred in the background, like issue 2, like hanging up on the
But see
clothesline.
that, and that's what I love about, and this is where
Oh
I
yeah,
fell in
that's
love with
issue two.
Jared's art.
That's issue two up behind me, drying.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah,
they're dry now, but
Well,
you know what I mean.
getting
yeah,
back to
In
getting
between.
back to where I got to Jared, when I fell in love with it was when he did
yeah.
this variant for Power Rangers, and I was just like, so I'm Year of the Dragon, and when I saw this, I was just like, this is gorgeous. I'm like, the background, the mountains, and I was like, and then when I first, because okay, I work at the comic book shop, so of course we get FOCs. We have to look ahead of time what's coming out so we can start promoting and all that stuff. So as soon as I see that cover, I'm like, oh my god, 1984. And you mentioned about colors, the pink automatically popped. That color pink was that was the 80s right there. That, the yellow, the green, I mean, all the bright colors. So, and I'm kind of wondering, I'm just off of what I'm seeing here, is he wearing a member's jacket?
Yes.
And I was gonna
Yes,
ask.
yes, and no. We can't really use
Oh
Oh
like
yeah,
yeah,
like I just
okay,
like
yeah. It's a
like
jacket.
it's a
yeah, yeah, yeah,
members jacket,
yeah, yeah. She remembers. Yeah, yeah.
and he's wearing Schmonverse
Yeah, yeah. You
So
shoes.
know,
I noticed the jackets you guys are wearing. I take it, is he
Mhm.
yeah.
gonna have that logo on that jacket?
Not in the so here, let me show you something. When I told the idea to Zach, and he was a lot more excited about it than because I sort of come up with ideas all the time and just throw them in the
I'm you,
trash. I think
bro. I'm
I'm
you.
very I think I'm very naive about how anything is made. I just assume that like these companies just sort of anoint someone, and then this thing
Yeah,
is sort
and
of
then something
made.
gets made. Yeah.
Whereas Zach has come from a long history of editorial and also pitching for both film and TV and comics. So to me, it was just like, no, it's like baking a bunch of cupcakes and then I just throw them in the garbage. I don't really know what you're supposed to do with these things that you generate. So I had initially just like I said, scraps of pictures in my head, and then I told Zach no, just pretty flat out, was like, I'm too embarrassed about this. I don't want to do this. And he was like, give me an hour and I'll write something. And he did. And like, he did say that we had a back and forth about it, but he did write something enough for me to go, okay, well, maybe we don't throw it in the garbage. But off of what he told me, the initial ideas, I did some concept art paintings. So these are some of them.
Mhm.
But in the concept art paintings,
Oh,
he kept the
dude, like
Converse
breakdancing
that are not
pants. Are you
technically,
kidding me,
Yeah.
but
dude?
he's wearing the initially he had the members only jacket with the logo on it, but we and a sword too. But we had both decided that it kind of felt like you're starting the story with everything, and I had wanted it to be sort of like we're starting we're growing with this character. We're
Character,
going on this
yeah.
journey with this character. Kind of like it felt a little bit like starting Zelda with the Master Sword,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
shield, and
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
You just start with everything, or do you start in the woods and then you have to sort of work your way up? So we're starting. So we started out with the initial concept sketches I did were this is another one.
We're
I have a
so
bunch of
different,
these.
right? Yeah. And
Um,
these were off our conversations, right, Jared? Like you got the
yeah. So
rabbit, and it's funny seeing these and seeing how much has evolved,
Wow.
because to
you
Jared's
changed a
point,
lot too.
yeah,
But yeah,
to
sorry.
Jared's yeah, I mean, I really want to pick at a little bit what you just said, because it's very much like we don't want to start with like the hero having everything and being
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
overpowered. And really, this story is what we like to call like a modern day warrior's pilgrimage, which is what Usagi in feudal Japan is on this
Yeah.
warrior's pilgrimage. And so it's almost this very call to action. Like you're going to really see how this story becomes its own, but also have familiar ties.
That's what enticed
And
me to it too, was like
yeah,
going on that journey in the 80s or in modern day where it's a much less stoic society. So
mhm,
that's been a really fun thing that Zach and I we have a lot of meetings, especially when we were coming up with ideas where we'll discuss these things. Like, what does it look like to go on a warrior's pilgrimage in a much less stoic society where there are things like an opportunity for range that in acting that there may not be in the Edo era, for example, where they're it's not as hard of a culture. So like how
Yeah.
yeah,
does that manifest? And how do we take characters who are very passionate and brave, like Tomo, for example, or Usagi, and what does that look like in the 1980s? Like, how does that translate to a world that is not quite as hard necessarily, but also shaped by the global impact of Japan in the 1980s, which was just like a big cultural boom,
Yeah.
financially and everything, and how that kind of
Okay.
shapes the world.
So I have to ask, and I'm going to do this because of Guardians of the Galaxy. Are we going to see him rocking a freaking headset and cassette player? Come on,
Oh, someone might at some point.
Oh,
yeah.
dude.
That would be. I honestly, I'm not gonna. Or KAITO is so Zach came up with the name KAITO for him. So this is the
Yeah,
sort of
okay, I was gonna ask about
deviation
that. Yeah.
on in the path that was Zach's doing. In that KAITO means phantom thief. So that plays a lot more into his story of who he is. And initially I was like, I don't know, because I don't want people to think he's like a robber, but Zach was the one that was like, no, it's more like kind of like Lupin or like a Robin Hood,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and we built on that idea. But KAITO means phantom thief, so that is this kind of the deviation. So in the beginning, we are not starting out as on a warrior's path. We meet him, and then I'm not going to tell you where. I guess I shouldn't say
Yeah,
where it
yeah.
goes, but
No spoilers, no spoilers.
but it's this sort of it's the quest of discovering
Wow.
this experience, and then
Yeah.
also in the process discovering these emblems and symbols of the past as well. So like he doesn't start with like the sword, because Usagi has an
man.
iconic sword,
Yeah.
and he doesn't start with these like the symbol and things like that. These are things that he
Need to be
finds
earned.
in this.
Yeah.
They need to be earned on this quest where he's sort of discovering Yojimbo like us, like we do when we read the sagas and
Yeah.
the run from various companies that it's
Okay.
been published by.
Just pitching. This is just me pitching.
Sure.
I'm a pin guy, so I love pins. I love pins.
Cool.
So when they did the Turtles comics, they had like the different Leonardo piece,
Mhm.
the bandanas. Dude, we need a pin of that logo.
It'd be fun.
That would
Yeah.
that would be freaking awesome.
I will say
sure
we are excited for all the merch that will, like, it depends on how the book does, right? Like, so pre-order the book, I
Hopefully
think
people
that, like,
are into
we're so nervous that this will just not do well, and then we've ruined it for other writers and creators. Because we're so close to it, but to just go more into like the genesis of the story, I like to think it's a healthy balance of honoring the lore and what fans have come to know and love, while
Yeah.
being welcoming to a new audience. And to really, like, I love the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s too. And it's funny because our editor, has sent us like thoughts of like, what about a pop star like kind of concept? And like, we're like, heck yeah, like, are we going to do more stories? Like, we want to explore that more. There's so much we can really go into. And in truth, like, Jared and I have mapped out kind of like 20 issues
Oh,
so far. Right
wow.
now, we're contracted for only 5 because this is such new territory, right? And so, um, we're ready to tell more, and there's a lot we can push in this kind of modernish setting, and what does it mean to be a samurai really in the 80s, right? And have like yokai and like the kind of the blending and bleeding of feudal Japan lore kind of coming into this world. This is all kind of themes that you'll see in this first arc. And like I think is what really carries the story. And I think what I like to think that the Stan and the family really enjoyed is that us being such fans who've read the books, like Jared and I have read cover to cover every issue, you know, we really want to connect to these dots and really play
So,
into the lineage, of
so
Usagi.
you're literally gonna dive in where you're gonna probably have. I'm just speculating. Haven't read the book, guys, but we're gonna maybe have a flashback where it ties to something that is connected to what's going on in the '80s, kind of thing, or a
I don't know.
story.
Maybe
I don't
not.
know.
You're
How
gonna
well can
have
you
to.
see above my head?
Yeah, are you reading the pages behind you? But what's cool also in this 80s setting is like, Jared, can you pull up cover 2 actually, that you just had pulled up?
Well, dude, the
Like,
'80s was big with ninjas, man. We had
yeah,
American Ninja. I mean, it was just that was it.
but even so, like Japan and the neon culture, right? This is the in
Yeah.
Osaka. This is the Dontobori, which is like a night market kind of river district in Osaka. That if you ever make it out to
Wow.
Japan, like there are just stalls that sell one item, right? And it's amazing place to visit. I'm hopefully returning this March and maybe again this year. Who knows? Uh, and we really like Jared and I just found photo reference, and Jared just drew and drew and drew. These are all settings that you can find in today Osaka. You
I'm
know,
getting rumbles in the Bronx with Jackie Chan feel with the
yeah,
background.
yeah. Oh, Osaka kind of feels that way, right?
Oh man.
It's southern Japan. And it's funny because Stan had asked me when we were at New York Comic Con. Stan's like, "Why do you have them starting in Osaka?" And we had never been really asked that question before, and I was like, Stan, I love Osaka, so maybe selfishly putting them there, but like I see and Jared and I've talked about this. We see it being like the pilgrimage kind of working its way north, right? Like you're
Mhm.
Oh,
starting
okay,
in southern
okay.
Japan, and what's going to push Kaito and whoever his traveling companions are at that time to different limits? Like, are they going to stay in Japan? Like, where are they going to go next? Like, there's so much we could play with that we hope we get to play with.
I think that was
And
something I was really excited about too. With the modern era, is something what we put a lot of thought into, and I did a lot of concept sketching of, is that it is different in that it's a much more multicultural world where it was a little more isolated in the Edo era, and of course in the 80s there's airplanes, there's people from Germany, there's people from other places. So how does that affect the types of animals or
yeah,
the kinds
the
of
different breeds of animals we'll
variations, the
see too.
breed, so
Yeah.
to speak, of animals that you might encounter as he's kind of going through this world. And I think I usually tend to think of things in terms of shape. This is probably just from painting. I think that's something that I have really fell in love with, both cartoon drawing and then painting, is that both of them are trying to take the insane complexity of reality and consolidate it into shape, symbol, or same with painting, shape, symbol. It's just a different kind of shape, symbol. You're thinking about value. And so I tend to think often in shape and symbol, and then how those things are affected by light. So to me, what I was drawn to Osaka for was that it has a very specific sort of shape, like
because of the buildings and stuff
the
like
way
that.
the buildings are, and then also the cross blend of old and new. I
New,
found really
yeah.
interesting. There's like
It's very
an
much like that.
ancient
Yeah.
restaurant building, and then like a rectangle, just a
Skyrise.
perfect
Yeah.
cube skyrise, and then a like there's a very specific interesting
Dude,
combination of shapes
I'm
there, I
seeing it
felt.
in my head as you're talking
Mhm.
right now. I'm just seeing
Yeah.
it.
So, but yeah, a lot of the background places are all real, real places,
Yeah.
so to speak. Some of them I sort of, made a little bigger
Okay.
or smaller,
Fictionalized. Yeah, yeah,
depending.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh,
So we're getting into all this, but that pitch. So who's the one that says, "Hey, I want to pitch something to you"? Was it you, Zach, that says, "Hey, me and Jared have an idea. I want to get to that day." Like, how did you approach the conversation for that? Like, what was the elevator pitch? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I
We
mean, I think for can you mind if I take it, Jared?
Yeah,
Like,
sure, sure.
yeah, and I think we prepared a pitch packet. So like, I
Oh
think just
wow.
like kind of putting on my kind of skill set from just pitching so much in Hollywood, we kind of designed a comic book pitch with that in mind. And
Oh
so
wow.
it was roughly 5 pages with, Jared's art and some writing on like what we wanted to tell. And it was just very I would say it was like 80% cooked in the sense of the vision of like what we wanted to tell was clear. It wasn't fully refined and polished because when you pitch something, you want to make sure you leave room
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
whoever owns the IP or whoever is making it and funding it to contribute and collaborate with you.
You
And
never
so,
know. Sometimes they
yeah,
want to change
and
everything.
and and look, this is what's interesting is that they had only known Jared. Jared was the vessel that would be sending this
Oh
pitch packet
wow.
to who he's. They had never met me, right? And at the
Oh.
time, this was
Except when
like
you were
a
12. I'm
yeah,
kidding.
yeah, 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 right. But like this is like a year. Like my OGN wasn't out yet. My Hollywood stuff had never been into development or gone to pilot. So like I'm a no name, right? Like no one knows who I am. I remember talking to some of the Dogu team, and they're like, "Yeah, we had to we couldn't find anything about you. Like we had one like title, the which was a pre-order for your graphic novel at the time, but the pitch was so good." Right.
Wow.
And we love Jared and we trust Jared. And it kind of goes back to that, like the timing of things and who and in the sense of who is Jared knowing the team and establishing a really healthy working relationship. And then on the timing aspect, it was that again, they announced 2 years prior that they wanted to open the world up, but they hadn't quite found the right story or capacity to find the right story. And
we
in
had a
comes
weird
this, yeah,
we had a weird thing where Stan had an idea that was vaguely similar. We had this idea that was like a puzzle piece to that idea that Stan had. So it was
yeah,
this
Wow.
sort of timing thing where
yeah,
Stan had this big broad idea that had empty spots in it of like potential, and then we had this package that sort of was
solve that.
potentially the right puzzle piece,
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And then
at the right time, so to speak.
yeah, and to get more to dive into the creative process, right? So we had the pitch, and we're like, all right, guys, like let's do this. Let's iron out the contract. And so once your name's on that dotted line, Jared's process, I would say it's kind of a hybrid Marvel method. And for folks who don't know what the Marvel method is back Stanley pioneered this method where he would literally just like write a summary of an issue for either
Oh
Jack or
wow.
Steve Ditko. They would draw the issue and then he would fill in the dialogue, right? So, and that's the Marvel method in layman's terms. For Jared and I, it's a bit more of a hybrid because, as Jared says, right, he thinks in storyboards, right? So, before we even get to that stage, like we talk about the issues, we beat out page by page, and this is the Marvel method, right? I want this to happen on this page, this to happen on this page, this to happen on this page, and so once we agree to those beats, for the 20 pages, Jared goes right into layout stage, right? It's either really loose sequentials, essentially storyboards, right? He then sends me the layouts and he's like, all right, what do you think of like, do you see it? And w- and here's the thing about layouts. A good artist, you should be able to tell what's going on in the story by just looking at the layouts.
Yeah,
And Jared excels
exactly.
in this in tenfolds, right? So at the layouts, I'm like, all right, I see where you took our beats and you transformed them into very healthy sequential storytelling. I'm going to write the script. I write the script based on those layouts and
Oh,
send it to Jared. And then Jared tears my dialogue apart, like as he should, right? Like And this is where we're collaborative, right? Like, hey, Zach, let's tone this down. No one talks this way. And he knows, and I'm comfortable. Like, I'm overwriting because it needs to be pared down, right? Like, I want all the cards on the table to help us kind of craft where we want to go. And
Yeah.
sometimes when we're at this stage and like the script, we find that Jared's layout may not fit necessarily to what we need to tell. So we'll change he'll change the whole page,
Oh,
based on like what we've discovered in the script stage, right? So it's a little bit of taking a step back because we need to strengthen the story or we lose something. And so like there's a scene, in issue 1 where it's a bit of a splashy page and we had to go back and change it up a bit because like we needed to show something different to get the story across, and that the script better highlighted, and this is
yeah.
where he and I push each other, and not push each other in a negative way, but like push each other to tell the best story possible,
Yeah.
and so once the script is like and the layouts are good, we then send it to the team for like final approval, right? And this is where they're like approving the visual storytelling and the written script, and then there'll be some iteration, right? There'll still be some dialogue cuts, or we'll change the page layout based on like what we want to tell, and that has been like kind of the collaborative process. And so on the Dogu side, it would be to our editor in chief, Justin. Justin, if you're watching, you're great. We love you. He would take that, filter it through himself and the family, and send it to Stan. Stan would tell us his thoughts. He'd sometimes chime in with a really good idea.
Wow.
Often, which was really pleasant, like just say, guys, this is really great, like what, it was such a boost to just get that simple feedback, very nurturing, and that's how each issue had kind of taken shape. It's this hybrid Marvel method where we're both lending ourselves and like leaning on our strengths and then
Yeah.
pushing each other on our weaknesses. And I think that's why we make a good team, because we're not precious about anything, because like we know that,
You're
like,
open.
I rather you tell me something sucks, because that tells me you care about me. Like if you're just going to be like, that's great, like then I'm like I'm living in a false world, and so Jared, like we really, I've told this to Jared. He's made me a better writer. Like this
Wow.
process has made me a better writer because I'm like learning so much on just how his way of thinking is like changing how I'm thinking about the movement and visual storytelling. And I hope that's the latter, and we really push each other in great and grand ways. Jared, do you want to add anything? I feel like I've been talking too much now.
Yeah, no. I yeah, I don't have that's accurate. That is the process. It is
Yeah.
I think it helps story wise to just be incidentally a multi-draft process, and the fact that we're both just very passionate about story in general, and we can sit and
Yeah.
have story meetings over any story where we just sort of can go on forever about different ideas. But like I said, it just helps a lot because we have the combination of that. He gets the storyboards and the picture kind of ideas that I can communicate, and then I can get the things that he's saying, and then we both are just so desperate to kind of like rise to the occasion for this thing, and then just get better. That's literally all I think. I go to bed and wake up thinking about how I can just get better at drawing pictures, and I think that is what has been kind of driven both of us as a North Star. So we have a very good relationship with each other, and that having a better story is more important to me than my getting my feelings hurt. If I had like a character that I really liked and Zach is like, they die on page 2 or something, that doesn't happen. But you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
if he's like, I don't think this necessarily makes sense. I if it's something that's like we'll discuss. If it's something that I'm like, I really see this thing and I think it would make sense, then we'll discuss it, and we're both open to discussing when we have ideas that we're really stuck on. But for the most part, both of us have been totally open to just vetoes. If Zach's like, this doesn't make sense, I I'm fine with just letting, all right, well, we'll move from there and come up with something better, or come up with something that works better for the scene. And same with the dialogue, sometimes if I'm like, I don't think that they would use this slang in the 80s or something. Usually I'm wrong. I don't know a lot of, I guess I don't know a lot of culture.
Well, we had to
I don't
almost
think
like
they say that, and then I'll Google it and I'll be like, oh, well, I guess.
Oh yeah. Or like, did they say that? Like, we did a lot of like, did they say that in the 80s? Like, is that like slang that came from the 80s?
Because I'm like, I would remember, if I remember it, then I'm like, it may not be correct, because most of my cultural childhood began 1990 to 96, 97 or whatever. So and that was Usagi for me, because I happened to come to Usagi through the Turtles, like you, Ray. Where I didn't read comics when I was a kid. When I was really young, I didn't. A lot of not reading for me was I struggled also with reading in general, and popcorn reading was always awful. It's always a humiliation ritual, and I didn't know at the time that it was because people didn't really have the words that they do now for people who are like visual thinkers and things like that. So at the time it was just, well, he's stupid or whatever. Like, it was just, they didn't have like any kind of compassion.
We were creative at the time.
They didn't have compassion for that sort of idea. I think people just thought I wasn't listening. So I don't remember what I was going, what rabbit hole I was down to get there, but we've worked together really well in that we both build on each other and have an understanding for the kind of the greater good of the project. We both
basically you're your better half, basically, because, and this is the part about it, when you're in, I'm basically you. When I work with a writer and an artist, I can't write like Zach. But if I tell an artist like, hey, I'm gonna send this photo, I'm thinking of this and this, I can't write it out to describe what I want, but I can send multiple photos and say, I want something like this, but this together. And then seeing a writer take that idea that you just pitched them, and like you're talking about, Zach, where Jared he can tell his part by the artwork itself, and that's his way of expressing what his idea is. And that's how I feel when I'm at that point, because some of the ideas I did, I love them. And working with the artists, there's some artists I've worked with that have done some covers. I love working with them. Like, even because I used to work for another store here in San Antonio that was like the biggest comic book store in San Antonio, and the artists tell me, man, he goes, I miss working with you. I miss doing exclusive 11 by 17 prints, and because you had the cool ideas. And I'm like, well, I can't, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel I'm a nobody. I had ideas like Jared does that just run through your head, and you just come up with these ideas, and it's just your mind's constantly racing of something, and it pops in your head. But Jared's able to write it on paper and draw it. And that's, to me, that's a gift, bro. You can do that. I give you props, bro.
Well, it's just been obsessive practice. I don't know. I mean, I think
it takes discipline, I mean, to your comment, Ray, though, like, one of my favorite questions at a convention is like, what is your advice for aspiring writers or artists and creators? And I will always say, like, build your brain trust, build the group of people who make you better, who you can have as a sounding board. And you described just that, Ray, right? Like, where you're working with an artist and you're conceptualizing the layout of a cover and how to execute the story of a cover. And if someone who you're collaborating with that can easily distill what you're communicating, you've have part of your brain trust. You have someone who gets the way you speak, gets the way you think, and can translate that. And honestly, like, you'll learn from that. Like, I think you correct me if I'm wrong, like, you built creative confidence being able to execute that vision with that artist and hopefully do more covers, right? Because you've learned from that experience. And so, like, that's all creating is just exposing yourself and building your brain trust. And so Jared is exposing himself, and then the discipline of how he focuses that exposure. For me, like, I'm also a self-taught writer. And so, like, I could read books on how to write, one of my favorite things I tell people if they want to learn how to write is like watch the director's commentary for The Incredibles, because
Oh,
Brad
wow.
Bird wrote that movie and he's also directed it, and he's an animator. He also did Iron Giant, for folks who
Man, I
don't know who
love
Brad Bird
Iron
is.
Giant.
But
Yeah,
what's
sorry.
awesome of yeah, no, I mean, and he does this in Iron Giant too. But what's cool about the director's commentary for Incredibles is like he legitimately just walks you through the movie and like why he set up each shot the way he set it up. Like
Wow.
why the composition is set this way. What does he want you to feel as a viewer? And I remember someone giving me this advice, and I just watched the commentary and I'm like, oh my God, I'm learning so much. Like, just like the almost tricks and ways that, and they're not really tricks, so I'm not deceiving anyone. It's just like the ways I'm visually storytelling without any dialogue or words. It's just like, what's the intent of the scene? And so, for anyone who are visual thinkers, that's a great director's commentary to just watch and listen to, because he does it so expertly. Like, oh, the reason this, dash is at, going this way on the right is because I'm setting this up here and I'm doing this here. And like comics is the same way, right? Script writing is the same way. Like, how am I moving, from A to B to Z? And it's that sequential Z that we talked about before the show, right? Like your
Yeah.
line of sight for the most part follows left to right, diagonal down. And so if I could follow that storytelling to the page turn, right, that's like something we have to keep in mind. And so Jared's very good about this, where, oh, let's remove a panel. There's too much happening on this page. Or
Oh,
actually, I have
wow.
more real estate on this page. We should push this here. And again, this is where we're leaning on each other, right? To just tell the best story possible. I really realized I just kind of went into a different corner of like this bit, but I think that really build your brain trust. Like that's what I heard from you,
Definitely.
Ray, is that you
Yeah.
you built a connection with someone. And for anyone who's listening who want to create and write or draw or do both,
Yeah.
like it doesn't need to be an isolating experience. It never has been creating. Like I learned that as an editor, right? And so don't make it an isolating experience. Don't be precious. Push yourself, learn and grow, and share that with someone. And that's how Jared and I have just kind of made Kaito a reality, for the most part.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's a
kind of
beautiful thing.
my
So
progress too. That I have a harder time with building a brain trust because I have a hard time talking to people. I always feel, I don't know. I don't know. I always feel like I'm going to bother people when I talk to them. So I don't usually talk to a lot of people. I don't usually talk to a lot of artists because I always feel, I think I came to comics later, and I feel like I always have this feeling like everybody knows each other, but I'm not part of the club. And so I usually just don't talk to other artists. I usually take my painting gear and I go paint by myself. So and then, like I said, I've met a couple of the artists with the capital A who are like lifelong heroes. And then it's like, end up just humiliating myself. So I spend most of my time at shows and things, but a lot of my development came from coming into comics later. I was 26 when I started drawing seriously, and I went to Heroes Convention before I was drawing. Just asking questions because I just had no concept of how you could even do this. I didn't even understand how do you first off draw something that looks not like a stick figure, and then how do you put it in a box that actually like tells a story. So I just sort of like,
Yeah.
you know, humiliated myself, but I introduced myself to artists and just told them and asked them questions. And through that process, I kind of developed a friendship with particularly like Andy Runton, who does Owly. For years, he would just sort of, I would ask him for tips and advice. And he has always been such an encouragement and such a,
Wow.
I mean, he's like a effervescent, he's some sort of angel. I don't know. He's such a kind human being. If you've met him in person, then you know what I mean. He's just so nice. So he's easy to talk to. But like him and like Robbie Wilson the Fourth, who I would ask questions to before I was drawing, and he would just help me out because it was just some random person asking about, for tips on how to draw stuff. But yeah, Zach has helped me a lot in that he's much more social and able to develop those kinds of connections. But that has been a big help to me, being able to ask questions and then develop relationships. I tend to fixate on drawing, and it's become such an obsession that I don't really hardly talk to anybody. I tend to just, I go to bed and I wake up thinking about drawing and trying to get better at drawing, and then I spend all day, except for hanging out with my kids and my wife, of course. But apart from that, I tend to just obsess at trying to get better at this thing, and then especially with things like
Whoa.
Usagi, is just because I want it to be a certain thing that I see in my head, and I fall so short of that in my own mind that I feel like I have to dig every day and fight to try to get this thing up to some modicum of what our ambition is for the visuals and the ideas that we want to do with it.
I mean, you're killing it. That's all I can tell you from, like I said,
That's very kind of you.
this piece right here alone. I can imagine the other ones you have, the ones that you probably threw away that you thought weren't good. I can imagine. But the thing is on that with between the two of you, and I'm gonna ask this and ask this from all upcoming comics so that can kind of, for people who didn't read the comics before or don't know this character, what would you entice with Zach first? How would you entice fans to pick this up, to read it, and for the fans as well? What would you hype it up for the fans?
I think that's a great question. Put me on the spot here. I think it's a great story. Like first and foremost, like it's a contained great story that has like very clear legs and potential to continue on, and it's a period piece that has high stakes, mythical lore. Um, and will be welcoming to new fans and honorable to the established fans who've been following the series for 40 plus years now. Um, yeah, it's both fresh and familiar. I would say it would be the two words, and we're really excited to like really bring in a whole new fan base while making everyone else who loves Usagi so much really happy with what we're doing. Um,
Nice.
and we're very mindful of that. Like Jared and I constantly are like, being precious with this. And I think that's speaks to why Stan chose us because he sees it in the writing and the art. And so we hope you all see it too when it comes March 11th, right? Is I think our issue one drop date. So hope that answers your question, Ray. Oh my God. I felt like it was too wordy.
And
Uh,
Jared, what can you tell fans that they can expect in the art that you're going to bring? I mean, the cover alone speaks for itself.
Oh
The
gosh.
cover of issue 2 that you showed us, I loved it. I mean, the background, the him jumping off onto a boat. It looks like he's jumping onto a boat. I mean, and like I said, when I saw that cover as growing up in the 80s and being a big Jackie Chan fan, I pictured a Jackie Chan movie, but with this character. And
That Drunken
I'm
Master and Rumble in the Bronx, by the way, came up a lot when we were
no
sketching ideas,
way.
by the way. We both were childhood fans of that era of Jackie Chan movies.
Oh, dude. Now see, now I am sure. So what can you tell fans? What would you entice them for that they can expect in your art that's gonna pop?
Oh geez. Well, God. I'm not as articulate as Zach. And I I uh I don't want to sound self-aggrandizing because I feel like I'm just a fry cook with a paintbrush, but we tried really hard. Uh, uh, we really have very passionately obsessed over this long before it ended up becoming a fully fleshed out thing. And this really is the product of that. And I think at the very least, I hope people see that drive and that passion and can connect with it in some way. And whether you're trying to also create pictures or not, I think we spent so much time, literally all night, some nights till 3, 4 in the morning, just working on world building stuff because it's so important to us, much like our both of our shared affection for Ghibli films. makes them work so well is the world building. It's the taste of the food that the characters are eating, or the, you know, the occasional tapping of a shoe, to just really bring you into that world. And I hope that people will, um, I hope people will enjoy the story. We put so much time trying to really study the content. You know, this isn't just like a cool idea. We really tried to immerse ourselves both in Stan's rich history, which is extensive,
Yeah.
of art, both before Usagi and during Usagi. There's elements that reference Stan's work. It's sort of a love letter to both Stan's work that really made us do all that we're doing, and a love letter to Japan and the world building of that era and that time. And so I hope that, from what I'm hopefully giving the person reading it, is a very immersive experience to me. It's not enough that you just flip the page and then, you know, laugh or say something looks cool. I really want you to feel like you're in the moment, and hear, you know, the cicadas or whatever, or hear the air or the rain, you know, to feel those feelings, and feel that sensibility of visual light and world building, because that's my, um, that is my, the thing that I focus the most on. I think that's the thing that I tend to think in storyboards, and I see ideas in storyboards sort of obsessively. It's kind of like a movie that plays in my head that I can't stop. And a lot of times when I am working on drawing pictures, I have to sort of put loud music on, because otherwise it just keeps going.
Oh,
And
wow.
I go to bed at night, typically, you know, rerunning scenes in my head with different lighting to see if I can think of a better way to make it. You know, what if it's raining, or what if it's a low shot, or what if it's a high shot, or what if we
Dude,
change
that's
the
awesome.
spotlight, what if it's morning light, or how would that be different from like golden hour light, and how can we better convey the mood of that scene or that sequence, without words, with just the lighting and the visual storytelling. And how can those elements plus food, little like Ghibli films, or uh,
Uh,
environment, mostly environment, I guess, to summarize all these things, if I haven't already put everyone to sleep, how can those things immerse you in this book? So we only get 20 pages of a book, but I'm hoping that in those 20 pages you feel completely immersed in a world that, you feel very involved with tangibly, that you feel like you can reach out and touch the car, start the car. We have a lot of tangible elements. I mean, it's not a spoiler because it's in the ash can and in the preview. It was very important to me to have, you know, like a Millennium Falcon type situation where they have this. Actually, I have a die cast model of it
the
back
car.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
But the they drive the little rabbit. Everybody has, you know, for the most part, cars. We spent a lot of time researching cars, specifically 1982 to 4 models of cars. You know, like Tomo has this Toyota Supra, and um,
Yeah.
they which is, and they have the rabbit. But it was very important to me that the rabbit has a torn lining on the roof, because I remember our car always had that when I was a kid, where the roof would start coming unglued,
Yeah.
and be and you'd have to kind of push it up and get the bits of insulation in your eyes and face, and the car won't start, things like that. They're tangible elements that we spent a lot of time
Dude.
talking about, because I spent a lot of, I really wanted this car when I was in high school. It was an old 300Z, and I'm not a car person, but I just thought this car was so cool, and I finally got one, and it was just a nightmare. It, from the first day I got it home, it wouldn't start. And I have a very vivid memory through my high school years of working at a Blockbuster Video. And I would have to park, same for my high school. This is in Fort Worth, by the way. And I would have to park at the top of the hill because it would never start. And so I would have to put it in neutral and then lug this insanely heavy, stupid car to pitch it into the hill and jog alongside of it before jumping in and putting it in second and popping it to get it to start. So I told Zach when we came up with the idea that we have to have that has to be part of it. That the car won't start because I have that
Dude,
very
that's
very visceral memory of the car of having to pop it in second every time it wouldn't start and pop the clutch. Put it in second and pop the clutch
well, the
going
new
down a hill.
generation doesn't know about that. But if you
Yeah,
were
I know.
growing up,
That
you
part
grew up
might
when
be a
we
little
grew
new.
up. Yeah. These younger generations don't have to worry about any of that. But
Yeah, I
yes,
know.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Those things are very important to me. These stupid little sound effects, like the thunk thunk of the, because all the cars are manual. Again,
Yeah.
I'm not like a really big car person, so I had to do a lot of research because I don't
But
honestly know anything about
it's so
cars.
tactile though, right? Like I
But it is
think
very
like
tactile to
yeah.
push the clutch. I still drive a manual. If as long as I can get it, I specifically bought an old truck so
Well,
that it has manual. But
the 80s was like think of rotary phones, right? No one
oh, sure,
like
everything's
anyone who's
very
like 20 years old doesn't know what a rotary phone is,
right.
right?
Yeah,
And to just kind of touch upon what Jared said, like there are a lot of these like real slice of life annoyances that are like human that we
yeah,
see hit Kaito and the crew, and they're intentional because they're supposed to be immersive. They're supposed to add drama and stakes, and they're organic and they're real. And down to the closing, like Jared and I spent endless hours talking about how everyone's gonna look.
hmm
Like, and there were like a lot of iterations. Like, just so
Wow.
many were like
yeah.
would they wear that? Like, should we go jumpsuit? Should like we were just really like looking at everything and then like assigning each other like things to watch, right? There's a very famous Japanese movie made in the 80s called Tempopo. Excellent movie. If anyone's ever seen it, you can watch it on HBO. It's part of the Criterion collection.
Yeah, you
it,
want to
it
talk
is
about
peak.
immersive food.
Yeah,
It's all
that
about
is a
food, but
that is like it's considered the first ramen western, like spaghetti western. It's a
Yeah.
ramen western.
I hadn't heard that. That's funny.
Wonderful, yeah, a wonderful movie. But like it's also very 80s and it's very Japan 80s, and so it really helped us. And so we would like Jackie Chan Rumble in the Bronx, like we would tell each other, okay, like watch this tonight, that's our assignment, you know um and really help us kind of craft that immersive experience. I think, Jared, that was a really good answer. Like I think we really have crafted something immersive, because your artwork really draws you in and lets you
Yeah.
live and breathe.
I hope
I'm very
so.
lucky to collaborate with you for that
I
No,
reason,
think
no.
so
His work, yes, it definitely is. I mean, I'm gonna bring this up because this is one of his pieces. Um, I'm an X-23 fan, and I'm
oh
a Kate Bishop fan. And when I saw that you did this piece, I was like, I have to put this in. I mean, these are characters that weren't huge at when they first were introduced. But now they're building that big following. But when I saw you had that up there, I was like, you know what? I got to put that as a wallpaper, dude. Your art, it
it's
does.
fun.
Your art does speak for itself, man.
Well, thanks a lot. Hope I didn't sound like I was fishing to try to get you guys to say nice things, but you're very nice, Ray. I appreciate it.
Oh no, man,
you're
that's
like
why I'm
every
here.
artist, Jared, you're every artist. You're your own worst enemy. You're truly great, my friend. And I
But
would say you are an artist that is a capital A. And if you won't settle on capital A, can we settle on a boldface lowercase a? Like
There's an
uh
umlaut involved. I'll take
yeah,
it.
yeah.
yeah, no, guys. I mean, this is awesome. I mean, this is what I want fans to know about, so we can promote this book because I feel this is gonna be one of those books that people need to go out there and buy, even for the ones who don't know about this character. Um, they would just want to get it just for the nostalgia for one. And I mean, if you're a martial arts fan in the 80s, I mean, Bloodsport, like we talked about Rumble in the Bronx. I mean, the American Ninja. I mean, those were huge things back in the day. Martial arts were huge. And that's why, for me, I love the 80s. The cover, and again, guys, I'm going to bring it up again because this cover is just gorgeous. I mean, he's got so much going on in this background. The cities down to the wiring he put in there that's hanging down the subway. This is what I love about art. I mean, this whole picture tells a story, and it makes you think like he just seeing him there, he looks like such a badass. Like that alone right there, just him standing there, and
That
That's what.
cover, by the way, is a tribute to one of Stan's original Usagi cover. It was when he was doing he did a cover for Albedo.
It's the first
Sorry.
appearance. It's the
Hmm.
tribute to the first appearance.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
screen, the building is like the screen door in the
There's
Albedo
a yeah.
cover.
He's Usagi Yojimbo is walking by, kind of imposingly, and he's holding his swords, but it's the same posture and turn to camera,
Oh,
and he's walking
nice.
by the oh my gosh, I can't remember the Japanese word for it. The doors that are like paper with the rectangles, squares.
Oh, yeah, 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 for
And
sure.
so that's what the cover is supposed to be a tribute to, which is there's a lot of the book is full because we went through a lot of discussion of how do we make a thing that is open to new readers and exciting, and that you're willing to jump on and buy the ticket for the ride, and immersive, which of course is the big thing, but also for people who are like us, who are lifelong Usagi fans, or people who there's the Facebook group of people who love Usagi, and people just discuss Usagi and just what's going on with the Usagi art and stuff like that. And so the book itself is open to all readers, but there are things in the background, or things in the way things people say, that are direct tributes to Stan's work before Usagi, or different pages or different covers that Stan has done throughout his artistic career. So
Wow.
not the
So
second
you,
cover, but the third cover, which I guess I can't share. But the third cover is another tribute to a very famous one
so
of the
you're basically
iconic
paying
Stan covers.
homage to the true fans who know the original artwork, and they're
Yeah.
gonna catch these little Easter eggs
So there's little
and
Easter
stuff like
eggs
that.
for the diehards that you probably won't notice if you haven't read it yet. And my hope is that it'll bring you in, like join the fold, that
Yeah.
you'll want to see, and you'll go back and get the fanographics and the saga and the
Well, that's why I said this
Dark
cover
Horse
it
run.
may it pops, bro. I mean, that's what they do variant covers for. They try to get you, and sometimes the interior doesn't match the cover that they're promoting, and sometimes you'll get it. Oh, it's a bad cover, and then you get into the interior art, and it doesn't match, and it doesn't go with the story sometimes. So sometimes it's like, okay, I got to read it, but the art's not that great. This we're getting everything. What you see on the covers, what you're getting in the interiors. So you are getting everything all in one. So guys, you have to go out there, pre-order your copies today. FOC cutoffs. I have to look. I will post FOC cutoffs on here when it is, because once FOC cutoff stops, you're out of luck. Once the stores sell out, unless it goes into second printing, you will not get your hands on the first printing. So you're gonna definitely want to do this. Get your pre-orders in now, or add it to your subscription boxes.
Hopefully I'll
Um,
get to see you at people at a show, and I can draw on it for them.
yeah, exactly. Okay, that's what I mean. You've been to Dallas. You've been to San Antonio. Zach, have you been to San Antonio before?
Yeah, I did the show out there, I want to say 8 years or so ago. I love it. Yeah. I only been once. I would love to go. My wife has family out there, so like I have every reason to be out that way. Um,
Hey,
yeah,
man.
maybe we'll find ourselves at a show, or even come for a store signing. Like Jared and we actually were just on a thread with the Dogu team talking about how we're going to do signings and promotion stuff. They've been very supportive of us.
I don't want to get
And
ahead of
so,
my skis, but maybe
yeah,
if some place does like an '80s theme, I would if they put on a Yaz record, I will appear like a genie.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think there's three variants per issue, right? So, issue one, Jim Rugg, right, is
Mm-hmm.
doing the first variant, and Stan's doing a variant, and then they
Nice.
dropped issue two. Kevin Eastman's doing a variant, and Stan's
Oh,
doing a variant. Yeah, so you can see that now. I think they just dropped the solicit for issue two already. Um,
wow.
and they have announced the other variant cover artists, so you can definitely check out the names. They really curated a nice list of folks. um and
They're
yeah,
really
these
good.
covers are,
Justin,
yeah. Yeah,
he's
Justin, our
a
editor,
he could
he's
run a
really,
museum. He knows what he's doing.
yeah, has gone above and beyond. And uh Yeah, no, they're really pouring a lot of support, and it's surreal to get this much support. Like, but we tell ourselves, right? Like they chose us for a reason. They must
Yeah,
really like this story. And the more support we get, the more chances we get to tell more stories with Kaito. Um, a lot of love has been put into this, so we're
I'm
excited.
looking forward to it so much. Guys, go follow them. You can see if there is going to be signings. If they do store signings, you'll be able to follow and learn and see when. Um, Hopefully, we can get them to San Antonio, either to Casa, which is in November next year, or maybe even Free Comic Book Day if they're not already booked, maybe. But hey, guys, go follow Jared. Go follow Zach. Follow us for more awesome interviews like this, because that's why we're here for. We're here so you can hear the stories from the writers, the artists, and talk about the careers and talk about the stuff they're working on. The one question I didn't ask yet is, y'all have already hit the IP that you guys wanted to work on. Is there an IP that Jared would like to work on that he has not worked on yet? And then one for Zach before we leave.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I think, I mean, I don't know. I have a lot of ideas that I want to do, but I never imagined, honestly, that Usagi would be a real thing. So I don't even know how to begin to like
Pick your
dream
next one.
of a,
Yeah,
an
you're
IP.
living the dream. I mean, we
I've
are living the
sort of
dream, right?
this was a dream I didn't think was even a dream. So and I've gotten to do some other fun stuff, adjacent to it through working. So getting to do covers for Turtles and stuff like that. But I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot I would love to do. I have a lot of ideas too that I want to do as well. So I don't know. I don't have like a great specific answer, but I would love to eventually do some one of Marvel or DC's characters. But um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly. I mean, I guess I sort of have a list in my head. So
Maybe you and I can collaborate on something,
yeah, I think
for a
that would be
pitch to
There you
great.
Marvel.
go.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite superhero is Doctor Strange. Like, I will die a very, very happy man if
It would
I get
be,
one
yeah.
published Doctor Strange story. I actually just finished writing a pitch for a limited series that like has no merit because it's not seen, no one's seen it. Maybe I'll share it with you, Jared, and we can talk about it.
Sure.
Um,
I have some
but yeah,
ideas I'd love to do too. I would love to do an
yeah.
interior Spider-Man, but
Oh yeah,
I don't
same.
want
I
to.
mean, Spidey would be
But who
a
doesn't
dream.
though? I feel like it's
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
embarrassing to like say the ones that I want to do, because I feel like it's
yeah.
like, yeah, well, of course, everybody.
But outside of Doctor Strange, I would love to. I'm such a Osamu Tezuka fan, like Astro Boy, Blackjack, Phoenix,
Oh,
Princess
nice.
Knight, just to be able to touch something that the Godfather of manga has like brought into this world would be a dream. And you're starting to see Japanese IP owners like open their licenses up more. So something that I'm trying to will into existence. You see Mad Cave doing Speed Racer, and
Yeah.
um, manga's so rightfully big in the West now, as it should be. But I've been such a hardcore fan since a kid, and I'm such a diehard fan of Japan. I've been many times. I have friends who live there who've helped me, integrate into the culture and experience it. And so to be able to play with one of the IPs out there would be a dream. So
Wow.
uh, yeah. So hopefully, cross your fingers and toes. But yeah, Jared, I'll send you that Doctor Strange pitch.
Sure,
See what you
sure.
think.
Hey,
That'd be
bring it
fun.
into existence, guys. That's all you
Yeah,
can do, man. Just make it out and
yeah.
make it happen. Again, thank you again for coming to Countdown. We'll catch you again. Hopefully, I can get you back when maybe issue 3 or issue 4 come out, so we can talk spoilers and Easter eggs.
That
Because
could
I
be
would
fun.
love to
Yeah,
talk about that.
issue 4 is my favorite if I had to pick. So it'd be fun to talk about issue 4.
Okay,
And
sweet.
I could tell you why for so many reasons. It was also the most fun to write. So, um, and I think you'll get it when you do read it. Jared, I think you would agree. I don't know if you would, but that's such a fun
Yeah, it would
issue.
also give a lot away if we talked
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah. We can't talk about it now. Like so much happens in
But
that issue.
it's a fun
Um,
one.
it's a really fun
It's
one.
definitely one that I feel like when you're pitching, when you're coming up with the idea, or you're trying to communicate what you want to do, especially in the process of storyboarding and then sketching a thumbnail, I feel like the process is kind of like writing checks that you hope you have the money for creatively in
Yeah.
the bank.
Yeah.
And 4 is we wrote a lot of big checks on that one.
Yeah,
It's
it was funny. I was so scared to write that issue, but then so happy how well we executed it. And
yeah,
I
that was
feel
what was
like,
funny. We both had a very ambitious sort of concept, but no specific way to make it happen. And then it was like it eventually sort of came together.
yeah,
I can't.
yeah,
It'll give it away if I tell you what the
yeah,
different
yeah. But
elements of
like
it
Absolutely.
put
that's
together.
Ray. That's a good
Um,
time to follow up with
that
us.
would
Is
be a
like
good one
issue
to talk
4,
about.
because
Yeah,
like we
the
can
way that
go
one
like
sort of
through,
cracked.
yeah, director's commentary of like
Oh,
issue 4, because
okay.
yeah, it's my favorite because it was also the hardest, but other reasons too. And I'm very proud of that issue. I'm very proud of all the issues, mind you, but like that one, I think I leveled up as a creator. um and that's a reward for me personally, but I hopefully pays off for the fans.
Yeah.
So
And luckily,
Okay.
Zach was very patient with my ideating, if that's a word,
yeah, yeah.
coming up with ideas for it. Because it was a whole lot of just, they're here and it's raining and they're holding this, but I don't know why. And then they're here, but this is here and it's a low shot and now it's morning light, but I don't know why. And Zach was able to be like, okay. It's like a chessboard with like
Oh man,
2
and I'm gonna have to
random
wait until
pieces
March,
and an action
April, May.
figure.
So I'm gonna
I
have to
think
wait till
June.
June. Oh
Yeah,
my
I'm so
Yeah,
god.
it's
sorry.
June.
It'll be here before you know it. Um,
Uh
that was that. Yeah, it was a fun one. We really, I think, yeah, we really did both level up, and it was fun to crack that one. It's like one of those moments where you like, oh my god, everything coalesces in a beautiful way, and this is like a fun issue. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I was
sorry to make you
very
wait.
excited about it, but I can't talk about why, but we know what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
okay,
it's
guys.
also hard because
Issue
like, yeah, go on. Yeah,
issue
I
one hasn't
can't say
even come
anymore.
out yet, guys, but they
Yeah.
already got us hyped already for issue 4. I mean, dude, what more can we ask for? Dude, this is just gorgeous. I cannot express how happy I am, and I can't wait. Um, so, like I said, go follow them. As Countdown will be posting anytime they drop anything, the covers or anything new, we'll be posting it as well. So go follow us for that. Again, thank you guys for taking the time, and I look forward to talking to you guys again.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Ray. It's been a
Thank you so
joy
much, Ray.
getting to be
It's
here.
great to chat with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, peace.
All right. Peace. Take it
Thank
easy,
you.
guys.